Hey everyone, this is Gabriel Carrillo from the EdTech Department for the Florence Unified School District, and today we're going to do a tutorial of the actual Smart Notebook 11 software. Now, this is the software that comes with the smart boards that are at some of our sites. However, if you're at a site that has Promethean boards, that's not to say that you cannot use the Smart Notebook software on a Promethean board. You can use whichever one you want. The interactive whiteboard, whether it's a Promethean board or a smart board, is nothing more than just an interactive means to communicate with your computer. In other words, it's a big mouse in front of the classroom. You could use any software you want. Today we're going to go ahead and just focus on the Smart Notebook software. Now, as you can see, I have that software over on the right hand side here. That way you could distinguish which one it is. It'll be somewhere on your desktop. As you can see, I have a pretty cluttered desktop, and actually, believe it or not, this is actually pretty good for me. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that Smart Notebook 11 software. Now, the first time that you open this, let's double click. First time you open the software, it is going to take a while because it actually is a very large program. I've actually had this open once today before, so that's why it's actually loading a lot faster than what yours might. Now, we're going to go over the navigation and what some of these menus are and that, and we're going to show you how to customize all that good stuff. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we stop looking for updates. We actually are up to date on the newest software version that we can have without having to purchase the additional licenses for the other features that are included with the other ones. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and click on Help. Let's get that out of the way. We're going to go ahead and click on Help, and we're going to go ahead and check for updates and activation. Click on that, and what we want to do, like I said, is we want to stop looking for those updates. And the way to do that is it's going to actually, ironically, look for an update. And by default, this will be checked on. What we want to do is go ahead and uncheck that box and close it. From now on, every time we open the Smart Notebook software, it's not going to look for that update anymore, because 11 is where we pretty much the highest version we can have on our computers. So, all right, now that that's done, let's kind of go over the left navigation pane over here. As you can see, we have kind of like our slide editor. And this is, I guess, if you were to compare it to, let's say, Microsoft PowerPoint, this is where you would see all your slides and you would be able to go from one to the other or what have you. What we're going to be doing in here is we're not going to be building presentations, we're building lessons. And Smart Notebook calls them, notebook lessons. So, as you can see, we have a default one, but if I insert another blank page, I now have another. And I can easily toggle back and forth between the two just by clicking here. The next one that we're going to go over is this gallery. This gallery is actually really neat. There's a lot of neat stuff in here, add-ons, and it actually does a very good job of indexing all this stuff for you. It differentiates between pictures, interactive and multimedia, notebook files and pages that are already pre-made, as well as backgrounds and themes. I'm going to go ahead and go over some of these in a little bit, but let's go over to the next one. Here's kind of where we have our attachments. You can actually pull in attachments, whether they be PDF, PowerPoint. You can actually pull in existing PowerPoints right in here, documents and PDFs, like I said. The next one that we have is kind of like our page effects, and you can actually add effects and modify whatever objects you have on your lesson. And you feel free to play around with that. And over here we have this really cool builder. It's called the Activity Builder. That's more advanced stuff. And over here you can switch back and forth between the right and the left hand side based on your room configuration by just clicking on that little arrow. This will take you to the next slide automatically. This will take you back. You can add a page and then delete a certain page. So if I'm on page 2 and I realize that I don't need page 2, I can just easily click that and page 2 goes away. All right, so let's kind of go back to this gallery. So let's say I'm doing a lesson. Let's say I'm a music teacher, and I'm looking to create a Smart Notebook lesson for basic strummed instruments. So I'm going to look for guitar. I can type in guitar by searching, or I can kind of browse through what they have. So if I go to Gallery Essentials here, and click on that little plus sign. I'll do it one more time. Expand that menu. You can see that there's various topics and subjects under that gallery essentials. So let's say I was going to go to, I want to make sure there's not a music one. Yeah, I'm going to go to the arts here. Let's try it one more time. There we go. And look at that. There's a whole category for music. And actually, I can delve down. There we go. And oh, look at that, instruments. And by clicking on that, on the bottom here, it actually has pictures, interactive and multimedia, and notebook pages and files, and it tells me how much of each that there are in there. So if I was to click on this pictures and this one more time, that arrow will just basically expand what's under there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And let's say that I wanted to add a guitar in there. All I do is drag and drop, and now I have an object on my page of a guitar. And basically clicking on that object, I now get this corner that I can pull and drag. That way I can make it a different size. Let's say I wanted to rotate this and, you know, maybe put a person back here and put this guitar on top of them as if they was strapped and ready to, you know, ready for that person to play. I can do that by grabbing this green one here. And any object that you have on the page, when you click on it, and you'll know when you're hovering on top of something, because you'll see over here in this blank canvas space, my pointer is basically a pointer. But when I put it over this object, I now get that compass rose that I can click on, and I actually get some pretty cool features in here. I can clone it. So now I have 2 guitars. I can cut, copy, paste, delete. Infinite cloner. This is actually pretty neat. What it does is it takes that stationary object and it makes it so you can pull multiple ones out. If you're a lower grade teacher and you're talking about, you know, letters or what have you, and you're thinking of words that start with the letter C, you can put a nice big letter C up there, and you can do an infinite cloner, pull one out, you know, spell the word cat, pull another one out, spell a different word with it. So you can really do some really neat things with it. And that's our infinite cloner. Let's see what else we have here. You can delete it, lock it. You know, what is a lock? A lock basically it locks it in place so that it becomes part of the background. So now I cannot move that one particular guitar. I can move all these, but as soon as I try to grab this one that's locked, it becomes part of the background. That really comes in handy when you're going to have students come up to the board, and let's say you designed a really beautiful, absolutely stunning lesson with lots of graphics in that, and you don't want a kid accidentally coming up and just accidentally moving something when they're supposed to be writing on the board. It becomes part of the background by locking it. Okay, and you can do it one of 2 ways. You can right click. I'm sorry, I'm going to unlock it. You can click on that little arrow menu and you can lock it that way, or you can right click on it and you basically get the same choices. All right, so that's our gallery here, and I browsed. However, we can also search for anything. So let's say I wanted to search for, and it'll search all the categories, not necessarily the one that I'm in. So let's say I wanted to search for numbers. If I type in numbers, I actually have folders with different numbers in them. Look at that, I have that whole algebra one. I have a deck of cards. This interactive and multimedia, that one's pretty neat. Let's say you're doing something with probability, or you want to you know, randomly call on students or what have you. There's these really cool interactive features, and as you can see, oh, look at that, it even spoke to me. Instead of just being a movable object, it's interactive, hence interactive and multimedia. By clicking on it, you get verbal feedback from it, so that's pretty neat. And you can really play around with the different features that they have here, and see if you like something. You know, if it's going to be relevant to the lesson that you're teaching, great, by all means use it. Let's say I wanted, let me get rid of that. Let's say I wanted some background. Let's say I wanted to, I'm going to be working with cursive, or let's say you're going to do graphing, and oh, look at this, backgrounds and themes. And all I did was search for the word paper, and look at that. I have grid paper. I now have handwriting worksheets, so you can literally drag one of those on as your background. Let's say I wanted to get rid of that 5. Since it's an interactive piece, I can right click and delete it. And let me scroll back up here. Here's my scroll bar, by the way. And I can take all these objects and delete them as well. One really cool tip is I've got a bunch of things here. You know, I've got, technically this is 8 different objects plus this one here. If I wanted to delete, I can click on one and click delete, or click on, right click on one and click delete, or I can basically click and drag and draw a rectangle around all of these items. And clicking on any one of these will give me the same options. However, now it has them all kind of grouped, and I can delete all these as one. So I got to take off that infinite cloner here and delete it. And then now I have this really beautiful cursive paper. So if you're talking about cursive or learning it, you can actually come up here to the different pen tools, and you can choose different pens. I'll go ahead and choose purple, and I'm trying as hard as I can with the mouse. This is not actually my hand on a smart board. My name is ... Okay, so you get the point. You have different pens that you can play around with, different pen tools. One thing I will say is when you're writing something with pen and you know you're done with that particular tool, it's always a good idea to click back on your select tool. That way you don't accidentally write something when you're trying to click and drag or what have you. So always kind of revert back to your select tool. And then there's there's a shape tool where you can draw shapes. You can really develop some very good informative and interactive lessons with your students. Same thing, if you're drawn with your shape tool and you're done, always train yourself to revert back to that select tool. And remember, these are nothing more than objects on the screen. You can click and drag them. Remember, if you get that compass rose and you click on top of it, you can, you know, change the orientation of each object. So it's up to you completely. Now, let's say you have little ones, kindergarten, first and second grade, and you want them coming up to the board, but the sheer placement of that board and the sheer size of it is really not going to work if you have this tool, this toolbar up top. If you click on that little those little arrows over here on the right hand side, it puts that same toolbar down on bottom. That way you have easier access for your smaller students. I'm going to put it back on top, and you can easily turn that on and off, and it'll remember your settings. So if I have it down here and I close the program, you know, I come back, open it up tomorrow or what have you, it will be on bottom. But I'm going to put it back on top just for the purpose of this training. And there's also this settings wheel right here. This settings wheel is really neat because I'm going to go back. You can see I have all these tools up here. However, there are some that I'm probably not going to use a lot, and there are some that I'm probably going to use all the time but aren't here. And I'm going to show you how to kind of customize that. So there's this really cool button called Clear Ink. That will get rid of all the ink. Now remember, I drew these as shapes, not necessarily ink, so that's why I didn't take those away. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that settings wheel. And here are some custom actions that I can add. So Clear Ink is already there. Clear Page. This Clear Page will actually get rid of all the objects on the page. So if I clear that, whoops, I'm sorry. If I click on that, it'll clear everything I have on that particular page. Dual write mode, that will make it so that you can actually have 2 students at the board, one working on one side, one working on another. Let's say you give a math problem and they're both trying to figure it out and you're kind of racing. You can use dual write mode, which is really neat. Now if you don't have that on your toolbar, you'd have to go up here to tools and you'd have to look for it. Oops, I'm sorry. So it can get rather cumbersome here. However, you don't want to be searching and looking for that stuff in front of your class or when an administrator is in the room. You want that stuff to be there. That way you're not losing anyone's attention. You're getting as much time on task as possible with your class. So by pulling up that customization, if I know I'm going to be using dual write mode all the time, excuse me, I can literally grab it and drag it and drop it there. Oop, where'd it go? There we go. Let's say I wanted to add it. Why are you not dragging? Huh. Interesting. Let me try a different one. Let me see if I add this ruler here. There we go. It added the ruler. Maybe it's not adding the dual write mode because I'm not technically connected to a smartboard right now. Let's say I wanted to add the reset page. Is reset page here? Yes, it is. There's the reset page. That's a really cool feature you can learn about by going to one of our trainings. Or this table feature, transparent background. So any one of these you can add by literally dragging and dropping. Now it looks like I've ran out of space, but technically no, you have, oh, that one's already there. You haven't really run out of any space, and there's different add-ons and tools that you can do. Let me go back to this one here. So there's an empty spot. I can add one here, and it'll just keep basically adding cells to that. Let me see if I can move it here. Yep, and you can actually move them how you see fit. So that is that setting where you can customize the toolbar. If you want to reset it to the default toolbar, so let's say you've customized it to the point where it's a little too busy for you, you can always reset it and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click done. Now I did mention before that you can also import PowerPoint presentations, and the way you would do that is if you would go to File, you can go directly to Import. Oh, you know what? I never saved this. I should probably save this before. So I'm going to go ahead and save as, since this is my first time saving. And I'm going to save it into my documents as, actually, I'm going to put it in a different, no, I'm going to go ahead and save it here. And I'm going to go ahead and do Smart, and this is a screencast. That's the word I was looking for. And go ahead and click Save, and you can see it's saving the notebook file. Now when I go to File and I go to Import, it's going to say, hey, where do you want to pull in this document from? So let's see if I have any PowerPoint files in here. There we go. I have this one here, softball and baseball parent night. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that in. And you can see that it is now, oh, and depending on the size of the actual PowerPoint file, that will determine how much time it takes to actually import this in. So this one happens to be pretty large. I got a lot of media on it, and it's, you know, it is a handful of slides. So you might have to wait a minute or two for this to actually come through. And we're back. Check that out. It pulled in my PowerPoint as is onto my Smart Notebook file. And if I go to my kind of like my slide editor here, you can see that it added each one of my PowerPoint slides as its own separate slide into the notebook lesson. So that's a really cool feature. I mean, if you've got all these PowerPoints that you've collected throughout the years, or you share with your team, or you just happen to be proud of what you've created, and you don't want to recreate everything from scratch in this particular program, then why not just pull it in? Pull it in. You can always add stuff to it. And as you can see here, every object on the page becomes its own separate object. So everything that applies to Smart Notebook files, you can do with this PowerPoint. You can, let's say I wanted to get rid of that. I can click on it and delete it and get rid of it. So do as you see you need with your particular PowerPoints. All right, so now we know how to customize our toolbar. We've kind of learned a little bit about the side navigation over here, these browsers. And we're going to explore a little bit up here. Now we have this file. Under File, you can, you know, create a new file, open an existing notebook file, import like we just did, save as. There's these time saves that are pretty cool. Let's say that I want it to save every time I move to a different page, every minute or what have you. You can set that up. Edit, if you need to clear or reset page, you can play around with that here. If you go to preferences, you can actually make certain things default. by playing around with that. View, you can actually go full screen, dual page display, and kind of play around with the different things here. Insert, if you need to insert a picture, you can do that from here, and just make sure you know where that picture is coming from, whether it's your flash drive or your pictures library on your computer, and all those tools that we have here by clicking on an object and clicking on that little triangle menu there. You basically have all that stuff here available in format and tools and add-ons. And then help, let's say that you just want to see a polished finished product that has all the features that you're looking for. You can always do the Smart Notebook tutorial, and I want to say that's a 30 slide Smart Notebook file that you can browse through that also has some pretty cool features for you. But going over what we just did right now, we basically went over the basics of the Smart Notebook 11 software. So please feel free to play around with it, develop some questions, talk with your teammates, get in contact with the EdTech department, and we can always help you out and kind of take your Smart Notebook files and lessons that you create to the next level. Once again, this is the EdTech department for the Florence Unified School District signing off and hoping that you enjoyed our presentation on the Smart Notebook software.